Welcome to Perception, Understanding the World Around You. During our work and personal lives, we participate in our environment and create memories of our experiences. These memories help create our perception of how the world works, and they influence our behaviors, interactions with others, and how we communicate. You might view the world differently than others because your perception of the world is different from theirs. Understanding how and why we have different views is critical to maintaining positive relationships. Let's start by finding out what perception is. What is perception? Perception is a personal representation of the world. People take their experiences, organize and identify them, and base their interpretation of the environment on them. Perception is also the process of becoming directly aware of and adding meaning to the world based on what you experience. Because people experience events differently, perceptions vary from person to person. We define and bring meaning to our environment and experiences through the use of our five senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. The information we get from our senses help us create our own unique perceptions of the world. Remember, perception is unique to the individual. We experience the world through our senses, and our experiences differ from each other. No two people have the same worldview. We interpret our perceptions to create our worldview. Two people may have similar perceptions, but they won't view the world in exactly the same way. No one can perceive 100% of all things at all times. What you focus on first is different from what someone else may focus on, so it's impossible to take in 100% of everything in your environment. Perception comes to us in three stages: selection, organization, and interpretation. These three stages are how you create a perception. It's how you understand information from your environment. Selection is the first stage when creating a perception. Using one or more of our senses, we focus on stimuli. We select what we want to interpret first. Three people walk onto a factory floor. Each one looks at or focuses on something different. It might be the noise of the machinery, the bright overhead lights, or the smell of what's being produced. Each person experiences the factory floor differently, and without even realizing it, selects a specific stimuli to process first. Organization is the second stage in the process where we arrange and classify information. Once we select the stimuli with our senses, we mentally organize and sort the information so we can understand it and give meaning. Think of how selection makes each person's interpretation different. The people on the factory floor watch a welder working in her shop. They see a human being standing with some sort of mask on, wearing protective clothing, and holding a piece of equipment with a flame. They hear the sizzle of the welding gun and smell the smoke coming from the soldering. By combining and organizing each piece of information, each person perceives or understands that the worker is welding. The third stage is interpretation. Interpretation is the stage where everything comes together and where we assign meaning or value to what we're experiencing. It's our personal interpretation of the experience based on things like our values, beliefs, and other personal factors. The first two stages happen rapidly, oftentimes without much thought. During the interpretation stage, we deliberately assign meaning to the experience. If we go back to the example of the welder, after watching her and determining that she's a welder, each person may interpret how skilled she is or decide what type of welding she's doing. They may also decide that her shop's too noisy, and that there isn't enough light, or that they'd like to try doing what she's doing. Each of these interpretations is based on an individual perception of her environment, and each person's perception of her environment is different. Perception brings meaning and value to our world. The perceptions we have influence how we interact with others, how we learn new information, and live our lives. Understanding the process of how we create our perceptions helps us understand different worldviews. You have completed Perception, Understanding the World Around You.